Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. And once again we are meeting with lecture 20 of Business English. In today's lecture, this lecture is going to be the connectivity of the previous lecture, lecture 19, where we will be discussing about some more types of reports. We will bring in our discussion about proposal as reports, white paper reports, marketing plan reports, usability reports, and this talk involves a workshop about the format of formal report writing. We also have a checklist for your convenience to consider whenever you are compiling and composing reports. And like always, today's lecture will also involve a language expansion activity and language listening exercise that is going to be the connectivity of the previous listening activity, and this is going to be presentation part 2. All right, let's start with today's talk. Well, proposals are one kind of proposal report is one kind of report, because here your audience is the supervisor or the one who has to approve your proposal. It can be your boss, it can be your supervisor, it can be your teacher, it can be the audience, particular audience to whom you are presenting your report for his or her approval. They include forms, letters, memos, and more formal reports. In some companies and contexts, such as in the construction industry, a proposal refers to a work contract with a customer. In this sense, a proposal, which is often called a bid, is a promise that specific work will be executed by a certain time for a certain cost, and such a promise is sometimes structured as a memo of understanding. Proposals could also refer to a grant proposal, which also needs to meet strict informational criteria and may involve precise formatting, such as answering questions in specific boxes. Grant proposals, however, do allow the writer to convey and explain his or her vision. In other contexts, the term proposal is used in the same sense as a recommendation report and thereby proposes a course of action. Now, grant proposals sent to foundations are often two-page letters that pitch an idea and attach some financial information. These proposals are informal but require the writer to match the group's mission statement in the opening, present the problem that needs to be addressed immediately in concrete terms, and convince the foundation that the group is qualified to successfully address the problem. Proposals can also take the form of the long proposals, a formal document that proposes to complete a future project and that requests organizational support. Now, often such proposals are in response to an RFP, request for proposal, and that is a solicited proposal. Companies or organizations have jobs that need to be done and issue calls to interested bidders. And then you become the one who is going to design a proposal and will submit it and will wait for results, which will be inshallah positive if you are following the conventions of writing an effective proposal. Now, what are these white paper proposals? Well, white paper proposals provide background for decisions, and these reports can be internal and are often profoundly influenced by the particular discipline of their context. They can present investigations of new methods or technologies, or report on new sales solutions. To offer an example of the internal white paper, novice engineers are often asked to write a white paper for their division about some aspect of new methods or technologies that they have been taught but the company does not currently use. So white papers can also meet the needs of external audiences in responding to the frequently asked questions of customers. Used regularly in information technology, these reports remain and examine to be a technology problem, investigate potential solutions, and highlight the solutions offered by the company. So white paper report differs from recommendation and feasibility reports, and as they do not reach a decision about what action a group should or an individual should take. Instead, they offer backgrounds upon which decisions can be made, thus functioning somewhat like term papers. So marketing, let's talk about now marketing plan. Marketing plan, companies use marketing plans to affirm and to revise their current approaches to marketing products and services. These marketing plans review the current strategy or marketing principles used to market one or more of the company's product services. And tactics and strategies and techniques used to enact that marketing strategy are discussed in light of current market conditions. So the plan is used not only for budgeting reasons, but also as a key document in planning the company's future and the service's future. So the marketing analyst analysis performed in preparation for the plan examines the changes in the market from the perspective of the customer. Now, this marketing plan identifies potential customers and their purchase decisions. How it happens, it takes the following questions in account. What are the buying patterns? So it will make a list of buying patterns, and for that maybe the researcher goes into the details and go to different shops and markets and see what are the patterns of the purchase by some particular customers for some particular product. Are new technologies available to our customers, and have there been changes in public perceptions? So all of these basically questions are your research questions that you are setting to get data, to collect data and then to analyze it for your answers. Now, another question can be, are the target customers still the same or they are changing? So the profile section of your target, of your sample, will let you understand whether it's the same customer coming again and again for the same customer, or there are changes, or what pattern of changes are there. What are this year's demographics? So demographics section will let you know about the target audience and their ethnic groups and their locations, their geography as well. Should we adjust the target market? So do we really need to adjust our circumference of the market? What is our market nowadays, and where do we need to shift our focus? All right. Now, let's bring in the example of some food chain in our cities. Like if you are sitting in Quetta, and there are KFC and McDonald's are the food chains that are now everywhere in the country, and you must be observing that after a while they open up a new branch, a new outlet. Why do they do that? They observe the market pattern. For example, if this is the square, the center choke of the city, and there is one outlet of McDonald's or KFC or of any other food chain, and then when they find out that customers are coming from one particular area of the country, and how do they know it? They maybe have a customer card where they ask their customers when they are done with their food to put in their names, the area of the city they are coming from, to find out where from this lot is coming, because they want to open up new outlets. So when they figure out, okay, this A portion of the country, most of the people are coming from this area, so how many people are coming in a month, or how many people are coming to match it with the feasibility of opening a new outlet, and see what can be the input and what can be the output. So how much profit the new outlet can generate, and initially it will be okay to start the business, and the expenses can be managed through with the income coming, or will we have some profit? So all these questions are basically addressed accordingly based on the decision that you want to take. So this is how we understand the patterns of change. Should we adjust the target market? So this is how you make your decision of adjusting your target market. The marketing analysis also looks at the selling situation for the product, evaluating past plans and achievements, and examining how changes in the selling climate may affect future marketing tactics. You must be observing this all the while, that these businesses around there in the market, in the city, they're always coming up with offers, with changes. Look at this telecom industry, look at these mobile phones industry. These cell phones are always offering you these services, they're always offering you packages, and you will find a kind of competition going on in between different kind of phone services, Mobilink, Ufone, Tango, and then there are so many others, and all the time they are tight competitors. If you are having one call rate of 1.75 paisas on one call, the other may offer 1.70 paisas, right? So they're always keeping a tight check on the market, and they design their strategy accordingly because they have to catch the customers. So the marketing analysis also looks for these marketing tactics, and they are very well implied in the marketing plans. Now let's have a word about usability reports. Well, usability reports are different from all the other reports that we have discussed so far. They present timely information to development teams, marketing and others about how well target audience can use the product under development or under review. Now, again, I will bring in some advertisement from television. You look at this Ufone campaign of advertisement, and you will find that after some days, maybe 15 days or 20 days, or maybe after a month or some particular interval, their advertisement change. It's one team, planning and executing their ads, but the idea and the story in each ad is different, and it is targeting different kind of audience, and each time there is something new that they target. Sometimes they're targeting that this mobile service is eating up more money than ours, so go for our mobile phones. And sometimes they are telling us that this particular festival is coming up, for example Ramadan or Eid or some other festival, and we have the cheapest calling rate. So they will have a story of somebody calling from their hometown to Saudi Arabia or Dubai or Western countries, and telling that they can talk on long and long on phone, considering that they are calling from Ufone. Sometimes so there are different stories, and each time they're targeting a different story, different scenario, and different situation to let the audience know that they have a wider scope to address to their audience's need. Here I am by no means I am supporting any particular phone company, or I am being an advertisement of any company. No, I am just giving you a partial, very humble review of the market that is available around, and that is on the media. So if you look at the media and you observe, and you will come up with different interesting examples, and you can analyze, okay, this is happening and this can be the reason behind this. Before a new product is developed, companies often assess the usability of competitors' products as a guide for development. This factor is very important, because unless you would analyze how the people are using the same kind of product by other companies, you may not really plan development devise and design a development plan for your product, for your company. So while a product is being developed, usability information is often collected weekly in an informal basis. But as the product nears beta testing, a more formal usability study is usually run. So both forms are there, informal and formal, and they are ongoing, simultaneously addressing different types of needs. We cover the types of usability tests in a more detailed and systematic way in the principles section coming ahead. So let's talk about the parts of usability report. As we discussed the parts of our recommendation and feasibility reports, now we need to discuss parts of our usability reports, because they are different. So an informal usability report, if the usability study is informal, for example, it's an observation of 3 or 4 first-year engineering students learning to use a new piece of lab equipment. The report is usually a memo. It's a memo format of report that is set up in relation to the questions and answers. So you can use an opening information for a memo and an overview of a situation. You can give some recommendations. Then your approach will be findings for question number 1, findings for question number 2, findings for question number 3 and as many questions that you have, and you will have appendixes, description of the product versions being tested, script for the usability sessions, and any questionnaires used to collect the data. So the key assumptions in the informal reporting of usability are that it is done as a component of development or as a trial before a more formal product evaluation is undertaken, and that the second important thing is that the report will be passed around in different areas of the company, different channels of the company, in order to build support for change. So you have to consider all the channels and all the areas in mind. These are the varieties of audiences you are going to target in the report. Therefore, you want to present your overview and recommendations first and provide a picture or representation of the product you are using later. They change rapidly during development. So if the report is staying within the group, you can make it shorter, but you always should include the appendixes so that your group can compare across if there are different studies available. Maybe there are 4 managers working on the same project, and when it reaches the final audience, they would like to have a comparison regarding all the evidences that you have attached with your report. Now, after this discussion of these report types, let's talk about our formal report format, and we are going to have a workshop, and you are going to work with me on a formal report template to see how do we write a formal report. So let's consider usability report as a formal study. So far we have discussed an informal structure of a usability report, and now we are going to use the usability report as a report format to talk about the formal report. You may want to follow the common industry format guidelines, CIF guidelines, and they are available on web, developed by National Institute of Standards and Testing. It provides a standardized approach to reporting across several disciplines that contribute to the development and usability of products. These can be any disciplines, maybe engineering, maybe avionics, maybe business management, or there are several disciplines which would like to promote their products for different purposes. While the CIF highlights the data from the perspectives of quantifying, it still works from a value observation. So it is quite a interesting guideline to go through if you really want to enrich your understanding of regarding report formats for usability reports particularly. So let's look at the anatomy of usability reports. How can we form them? It has a title page. You need to notice that only the specific guidelines from the title page are listed here. So for specific guidelines for the other sections, see the CIF guidelines on the web, it is available. And the title page will identify as common industry format report. It will name product and version tested. It may also say who led the test and who prepared the report. It will provide dates of test and of report, and it may provide contact information. So look at the introduction section of the report. It will provide an executive summary, full product description, and test objectives. What are they? You may have categories of test objectives, and then they are given in bullets. They are given under certain headings. That this is the writing style that you will adopt to suit your purpose. Then the method section will include details of the participants or the sample size or the sample universe, context of product use in the text. You will have tasks there, test facilities, participations, computing environment, and test administrator tools. Now, design of the test will involve experimental design, procedures, participants' general instructions, and participants' task instructions. Now, what can be usability reports metrics? Well, you can have a completion rate, you can have error analysis, you can have assistance analysis. And efficiency metrics will involve a task time or completion rate or mean time on task rate, and then you will also talk about the acceptance of the product. And this work will lead you to your results section. Well, in your research section, you will have data scoring, you will have data reduction, you will have data analysis, you will have your performance of results, and you will have graphic formats used. And in the end, you will attach your references. All right, this was a talk about usability report, and you went through a detailed discussion what can be an anatomy of an informal as well as formal usability reports. So after that, I hope we can start our discussion about progress reports. Again, this can be categorized under the group of time reports, which are based on time, which are categorized based on time. What is a progress report? Well, a progress report informs readers of the status of a project in progress. And its primary informational mission is expressed in two ways: informing the readers and presenting preliminary findings. When you are informing the readers of the status of the project, it is proceeding as planned. So you will answer whether the way it has been planned, it is proceeding accordingly, or is it on schedule or late than that? Have there been any significant changes in the scope or organization of the project? Now, presenting preliminary findings, well, what initial data do you have to report, and what tentative conclusions can you offer? So, a good progress report provides actual results. It doesn't merely state, I have made lots of progress on this project. Instead, it reports preliminary key findings. Short, a progress report previews the final report to follow. And conventionally, a progress report discusses two major topics: work completed, or results to date, and work remaining. Now, after this discussion based on all the types and different types of formal and informal reports, you have reached to a point where you can get a checklist of report to find out and to compare with when you form your own reports. And this checklist can be retrieved from the address given on the screen. This address gives you a complete checklist of an effective report that you can use to design to impress your readers and convince your readers as well. Well, the upcoming topic is how, it's a report presentation guide. How do we present our reports? Well, this can be orally and this can be verbally too. However, so far that when we are done with our written communication of report, let's talk a little bit about how do we orally present our reports. Although I'll be discussing the presentation section separately for business communication and business English, this tiny section particularly addresses the oral presentations or presentation of reports and gives you a guideline how to go about it. Now, when you know what is report writing, what is a research and research process, and how do we go through it, and how do we form our reports, you have knowledge about different kinds of reports, you have templates of different kinds of reports, you know exactly the characteristics that mark the difference between different types, and you have gone through different checklists to understand what can be the anatomy of different types of reports. You should know, when you are done with report writing, how to present your report. So, the primary goal of an orally presented scientific report is to present a record of research work and to communicate ecological ideas inherent in that work in a short period of time. Usually, oral presentations are created using a PowerPoint and are around 15 minutes in length. So, brevity and directness is essential. You have to be very direct. You cannot talk about many examples and indirect things, and you have to be to the point, precise and pithy. your presentation has to be pithy, and it has to involve all the essence of the task done. Try to only have about a slide for every 45 seconds or minute that you have to present. As a consequence, if you are presenting for 15 minutes, you should have almost between 15 to 20 slides. The author should describe the procedures followed, the results obtained, and then place these results in perspective by relating them to existing knowledge and by interpreting their significance for future study. So the following discussion is a set of instructions to help you produce well-structured, well-written PowerPoint reports and hence, good results. One of the most challenging components of writing a PowerPoint presentation that is labeled as PPT is the need to think modularly, knowing what information goes where it is essential. But always keep in mind that a presentation is different from a lecture. When you are giving a lecture, your PowerPoint presentation can have a different structure. However, when you are presenting it to present as information to your different kind of audience, the structure may vary. The format of your PowerPoint presentation may vary, because here you are at one point you're using it as a visual aid. At the other, however, you are using it as an assistant to understanding. So depending on the audience and their needs and the needs of the task being done, your PowerPoint may have different structures, and there are varieties to be taken care of. So use the following framework for your reports when you are designing PowerPoint presentation. For that, title slide with author's name or authors' names. Introduction slide, there are to be 3 to 4 introduction slides where you are talking about the introduction, all those elements that we use when we are designing our proposals for the reports. Then materials and method slides, well, almost 1 to 3 slides where you can cover all the methodology concerns. Then result slides, well, 3 to 6, or maybe depending on the number of results that you have produced, you can add into it if it is required. Always remember, this is not a religious number of slides that I'm telling you that you have to do it. It's only a model that you can apply on your reports, presentations. Discussion and conclusion, including errors, it needs to have 3 to 4, because discussion is going to be the main talk that you will base on the results and your analysis. And analysis and future study slides can be 3 to 6. And then you can have your references cited, if any. Only include if you cited a specific paper or book in the presentation. Do not overload each slide with too much information. Write in bulleted format. If you have complete sentence on the slide, you are not writing correctly, because here you are using it just to come as a heading. You don't want your listeners to look at the slide. You want them to listen to you, and you're giving your slides just to make them look at the title and then listen to you. However, you see in lecturing format it is different. Most of the time we are providing the verbal talk into writing, so if there has been something missed out in the verbal talk, students are able to look at the screen and can develop the link between the talk and the writing. So again, I would go back to the same point. It depends what aim your PowerPoint is going to serve. So include no more than 3 to 4 bullets on a single slide if you are going it for that purpose, and try to make all the points on a single slide relevant to a significant point, 1 point as a category. Choose a single background for the entire PowerPoint presentation. Your PowerPoint should not be a hodgepodge of a variety of designs. That is not. It should not be too busy and distracting, but visually engaging. PowerPoint is a fun program with many bells and whistles, animations and backgrounds and colors and ability to layer text and images and bring in the different kind of graphics, smart graphics and pictures and clip arts. Be creative, but do not include so many of these things that it distracts your audience from your content. Well, use large enough font so that the projected presentation could be easily visible in the back of a large room. If you have number of 100 audience, if you have 200 of them, and if you do not have that, that bigger projector than usual, that you don't have, you should not put too much data on one slide, considering that the audience sitting in the back rows will not be able to, look at the text if you are using fonts that are not really big enough. So usually this requires something greater than 32 point or maybe 40 font size. Also, don't use a font that is too ornate and therefore distracting. Simplicity is the key of success in presentation. So while still being visually engaging, you need to go for not more than 3 font types in your entire presentation, unless you have something to really get into some other fonts to discuss. When you write the slides, be certain that one logically leads into the next. So there is a link between all the slides, not that all slides are talking about something altogether different. Don't include the slides as self-contained, disconnected bits of information and images. Make certain that you know what your story is and tell it clearly by developing some kind of link between what you are talking. Now, this bit that we are going to talk now, it's about style and content. How do you put your content onto the PowerPoint presentation? Well, avoid footnotes or too many of footnotes. If you have to put a footnote, it should be very crystal clear. And try not to put too much text as footnote. Write in the past tense so you are able to narrate a story if it's easy to talk about. Use a heading for each slide. If a heading is there, your audience will be better, in understanding and making a hierarchy of ideas in their head. Underscore Latin, Latin genus and species names. Be certain to put the, name and then their meanings. If your audience they are really not clear about what they mean. If you're using anything unusual, try to provide a link so you can always refer to it, click on it or hyperlink it, and tell your audience that how do you design that. Avoid long, complex statements and break these down into several sub-components, each with a separate bulleted entry. Now check for excessive use of commas and conjunctions and, but, or. You can often split these points into several. Avoid excessive use of nouns as adjectives. Use positive statements and avoid non-committal statements. For example, use the data indicate rather than the data could possibly suggest. Now, avoid non-informative abbreviations such as etc. and so on. Reduce jargons to a minimum. If there are many terminologies, try to talk about them instead of putting them there. Avoid repeating facts and thoughts. Try to be less repetitive because this can bore your audience. Be concise and succinct. Don't pad out your report with irrelevant data or discussion or images, because then again you will get your audience distracted, and then it gets very tough to have them back on the track. Above all, produce accurate, clear and concise writing. It takes you back to the 7 C's of writing. You see, wherever you go, whatever you touch upon in the business writing course, in the discipline of business writing, you are dealing with 7 C's of writing. So in this section, introduction section, state the nature of the problem, the aims and objectives of the study, and brief background information providing the context for the study you will be presenting, and why is what you are doing relevant to other scientific work, and how does it relate to this other work. Now, include the justification and relevance of the study. Try to answer the following question like, why do you do the study? What is the existing state of knowledge of this topic? Restrict background information to which is pertinent to the research problem. What are the specific objectives? And clearly state the question that you sought to answer. Now, material and method section, state the hypothesis you tested and include a description of the procedure you use that would enable a reader to duplicate the study to ensure repeatability. This will include data collection techniques, the equipment used, the experimental design, characterization of the location of the study, and the methods used to record, summarize, and analyze data. Minimize descriptions of well-known procedures and use references where appropriate to authenticate and avoid plagiarism. Use figures to explain experimental setup where appropriate. And then your results section should throw light on, start your results section with a text slide summarizing what it is and that you found. Then in subsequent slides, you will present graphs with the data to back up the points that you make on this slide. Then summarize the data generated with tables, figures, and descriptive text. Do not include raw data. Describe your data and the patterns, trends, and relationships observed. Proceed from most general features of the data to more specific results. Use graphics to display data in preference to tables whenever feasible. Use clear, concise, descriptive titles and explanatory legends for tables and figures. Ensure all excess of graphs are labeled properly and that units are identified in all tables and figures. The results section should be free of interpretation of data. Now, the discussion and conclusion section. This section should include an interpretation and evaluation of the results. Compare with other studies and draw conclusions based on your findings. Refer back to the review material you presented in your introduction in this section as well. Refer back to the original hypothesis you were testing and draw positive conclusions wherever possible. So, identify sources of error and any inadequacies of your techniques. If you find any, remove that, and that needs a lot of revision. Speculate on the broader meaning of the conclusion drawn and address any further study that your research suggests. So, look at the reference cited. You need to list all the references cited in the text and only the references that you cited in your text. If you did not cite any reference, you don't need a reference slide. Cite references in text by authors and date, and if there are 3 or more authors of a reference, abbreviate by first author surname followed by et al. Example, Smith et al. State that. And all references should be listed in full alphabetically by first author in the reference cited section. Be consistent with the format. Don't change formats in between your slides and only use references pertinent to your study and your data. Do not forget it. And then you can have a general comment section. Use and evaluate all the data you report and do not be discouraged if your results differ from published studies or from what you expected. Your data do not lie. They may be inaccurate because of an experimental design problem, but they do not lie. Justify all tables and figures by discussing their content and labeling them clearly. Be creative in your presentation of data, your analysis and your interpretation of data. Play around with different variations before completing your report. And do not force conclusions from your data or fudge data by omitting that which does not support preconceived conclusions. Don't be biased. Make sure all calculations and analysis are relevant to the hypothesis that you have tested. Justify your ideas and conclusions with data, fact sheets, and all the analysis. Keep the different sections of the report discrete, that is, methods in the methods section, results in the results section, analysis in the analysis section. Do not overlap sections and try to keep compartments. Plan your writing, organize your thoughts and data, and then do it. So this was all about our talk regarding the subject matter for this lecture. Now we are ready to move on to our language expansion and listening exercise together. That is again about project presentation, and this time it is part 2. Let's start with that. You're going to answer these questions after listening to the audio. I will play the audio, you will look these questions on the screen, and then by the end you will listen to the, you will give me answers and will match your answers with my answers.
Hello and welcome back to Business English Pod. My name's Edwin and I'll be your host for today's lesson on giving a product presentation. There's no better way to show off a new product than talking to a group of customers directly. You can teach them about the product and gently persuade them that they need it. And you can adapt your presentation for specific audiences. Whether you're at a trade show, a corporate event, a conference, or a customer's office, you can learn to work the crowd in front of you. Working the crowd during a product presentation is probably familiar to anyone who works in sales and marketing, but the techniques involved are useful for anyone in a company who has to talk about products or deliver presentations. In this lesson, we'll cover many of these useful techniques, including relating changes to customer feedback, highlighting user benefits, and demonstrating a feature. We'll also look at anticipating concerns and encouraging questions from the audience. In the dialogue, we'll rejoin Jenny, who's presenting a new software upgrade to a group of customers at a trade conference. She'll also be joined by Tony, who works for a partner company called Paces. Together, Jenny and Tony are explaining how their products work together. As you listen, try to answer the following questions. 1. What does Tony say customers have asked for? 2. Tony mentions a few benefits of the recent product changes. What are they? 3. What does Jenny think that some people might be concerned about?
Okay, so you've heard me talk a lot about how ProBooks is going to integrate with other software. And I know that a lot of you use Paces for payroll. So how exactly does this upgrade affect you? Well, today I have with me Tony from Paces, and he's going to talk about what it all means. Tony?
Okay, great. Thanks very much for having us here, Jenny. Really appreciate it. And thank you guys for coming. Now, you know about 70% of medium to large-sized Paces customers rely on ProBooks. So of course, it's important to us that these two pieces of the puzzle work well together. And the biggest thing we've heard from our customers is about the need for integration and for your payroll data to be integrated with the rest of your financial data. So, starting with our new Paces Online, all your payroll data is automatically shared with ProBooks Fusion.
Yeah, and if I can just add here, that goes back to what I was saying earlier about reports. You're going to see any entries in payroll come through instantly in your reports.
Exactly. And thanks, Jenny. Yes, no more moving data over manually. We've beefed up Paces Online, and you can now link it directly to ProBooks Fusion. Everything is synced, and the result is easier data entry, more detailed reports, and better tracking. Okay, so now let me show you some of what I'm talking about here. Have a look at the screen, and I'll sign in as Tony Demo. Right, so I'm going to click on New Employee, and you'll see what happens. Okay. Most of this looks familiar, but down at the bottom here, you'll see a new widget. So let's zoom in on that, and we can see what Paces Online is going to let you do.
Okay, now I know what a lot of you might be thinking here. What if we're not ready for the upgrade? And what if we don't need all this integration? Can we opt out? Well, yes, you most certainly can. All ProBooks Online services are still fully compatible with previous versions, so no worries there. Now, before we go on, I just want to address any other questions or concerns you might have. Anyone? Any questions from you folks in the back? Well, if you're wondering about something, chances are the person beside you is wondering the same thing.
Now, let's go through the dialogue again and look at the techniques that Jenny and Tony used in their presentation. We rejoin the presentation as Jenny begins to introduce Tony.
So, how exactly does this upgrade affect you? Well, today I have with me Tony from PACES, and he's going to talk about what it all means. Tony?
Rather than just explaining how ProBooks works with other software, Jenny has invited Tony from PACES, one of their software partners, to present with her. She sets up her introduction by asking how the upgrade will affect PACES customers. Of course, she won't answer that question. Her guest will. Jenny keeps the presentation upbeat and positive by introducing Tony casually, saying, "I have with me Tony," and handing him the floor with a simple, "Tony?" Now, let's listen to what Tony has to say.
Okay, great. Thanks very much for having us here, Jenny. Really appreciate it. And thank you guys for coming. Now, you know about 70% of medium to large-sized PACES customers rely on ProBooks. So of course, it's important to us that these two pieces of the puzzle work well together.
When someone introduces you as a speaker, it's a good idea to thank that person, just as Tony has. Tony also thanks the audience for coming because showing appreciation helps maintain that positive tone. Before getting into details, Tony emphasizes that it's important for ProBooks and PACES, or the two pieces of the puzzle, to work together. That's another way of saying integration, which is the key message both Jenny and Tony want to get across to the audience. Now, let's hear how Tony talks about his side of the puzzle.
And the biggest thing we've heard from our customers is about the need for integration and for your payroll data to be integrated with the rest of your financial data. So, starting with our new PACES Online, all your payroll data is automatically shared with ProBooks Fusion.
The need for integration is what Tony calls the biggest thing we've heard from our customers. More specifically, customers have mentioned that payroll and financial data need to be integrated. Tony then connects this customer feedback directly to the changes in PACES with the word "so." By explaining that these changes have been made in response to customer feedback, Tony is helping the audience see the value of the integrated software. Demonstrating value is one of the main objectives of this kind of presentation. So let's practice some more ways of relating changes to customer feedback.
People have expressed safety concerns, so we've added a layer of padding to the helmets.
A lot of customers said that the Zoom phone needed to be smaller, so we've made the Zoom Phone Mini.
We've added a customizable interface to our smart TVs, just like you asked for.
People have asked for better remote control features, so that's what we've done.
After Tony begins explaining how PACES and ProBooks are integrated, Jenny jumps in to reinforce the point.
Yeah, and if I can just add here, that goes back to what I was saying earlier about reports. You're going to see any entries in payroll come through instantly in your reports.
Jenny just wants to support what Tony is saying by adding a point about how PACES records appear instantly, or without delay, in the ProBooks reports. You may remember, in our last lesson, Jenny demonstrated how those reports have been improved. So now she's trying to show how Tony's explanation relates back to the features she's already discussed, and how this idea of integration brings all the pieces together. Now, back to Tony.
Exactly. And thanks, Jenny. Yes, no more moving data over manually. We've beefed up PACES Online, and you can now link it directly to ProBooks Fusion. Everything is synced, and the result is easier data entry more detailed reports, and better tracking.
After agreeing with Jenny, Tony explains a bit more about what these changes mean for the customer, who now won't have to organize data manually. In other words, the data will move automatically, without the user doing anything. Tony goes on to explain more benefits of a beefed-up or enhanced PaySys online. With everything synced or connected automatically, users will enjoy easier data entry, detailed reports, and better tracking. In a product presentation, customers want to hear how a new product will actually help them. So let's go through some more examples of highlighting user benefits.
With the automatic climate control system, you won't have to worry about temperatures.
Users can now get their information in about 1/10 of the time they used to.
By adjusting the height of the desk, you can now stand instead of sitting all day.
The tracking feature means that you won't have to call to see if your shipment has arrived.
Tony has explained the benefits. Now let's listen as he uses another great technique to help customers understand the new product.
Okay, so now let me show you some of what I'm talking about here. Have a look at the screen, and I'll sign in as Tony Demo. Right. So I'm going to click on New Employee, and you'll see what happens. Okay, most of this looks familiar, but down at the bottom here, you'll see a new widget. So let's zoom in on that, and we can see what PaySys Online is going to let you do.
Tony wants to actually show people or demonstrate what he's trying to explain. He asks them to look at the screen as he walks them through the program. He signs in or enters his login information, clicks on a button, and takes the audience to a screen where he wants to zoom in or look closely at a new widget. A widget is a website tool that helps you display certain types of information. By explaining the steps he is taking, Tony is demonstrating a new feature. One of the great benefits of a presentation is that you can demonstrate to your audience exactly how a product actually works. So let's practice a few more examples of demonstrating a feature.
Now let me just show you what happens when I hit the sync button here.
Okay, so to change the brightness, all you have to do is tap the base, like this.
If I just flip this keyboard around, your laptop is now a tablet.
Now watch as the cutting blade will instantly stop when it contacts my glove.
Now, let's get back to the dialogue as Jenny returns to address any audience concerns or questions.
Okay, now I know what a lot of you might be thinking here. What if we're not ready for the upgrade? And what if we don't need all this integration? Can we opt out?
Jenny has already guessed or anticipated what some customers might be thinking. So instead of waiting for people to ask, she asks the questions herself. And the big concern that she identifies is whether people can opt out or choose not to use the new upgrade. By anticipating the audience's concerns, Jenny is hoping to reassure them so they will be more accepting of the new upgrade. Let's go over a few more ways of anticipating audience concerns during a presentation.
So, some of you might be wondering if this is safe for children to use.
Now, who here is thinking that this might cost an arm and a leg?
We realize that some people might have questions about data security.
Okay, what about setup? You might think it's too difficult, but it's not.
So, can people opt out?
Well, yes, you most certainly can. All ProBooks online services are still fully compatible with previous versions, so no worries there.
Jenny reassures her audience that yes, they can opt out. The older software is still compatible with ProBooks Online. In other words, the two will still work together. Jenny has come to a transition point in the presentation. Before moving on to the next topic, she has something important to ask.
Now, before we go on, I just want to address any other questions or concerns you might have. Anyone? Any questions from you folks in the back? Well, if you're wondering about something, chances are the person beside you is wondering the same thing.
You can certainly leave time at the end of your presentation for audience questions, but it's a good idea to invite questions after key points along the way. And because sometimes people don't speak out right away, you might have to encourage them to ask questions. Jenny encourages them in a few different ways. First, she says she wants to address or deal with any questions or concerns. Then she asks simply, "Anyone?" Then she calls on the people in the back specifically. And finally, she tries to make people understand that their questions might be the same as those of others. As Jenny shows, you may need a variety of approaches, so let's run through a few different ways of encouraging questions during a presentation.
At this point, I'd like to invite questions.
If there's anything else you're wondering about, please just speak up.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about this new version?
Okay, folks, don't be shy. If you've got questions for me, please fire away.
Well, it sounds like Tony and Jenny are finished with this part of the presentation. They worked hard to set a positive tone, to help the audience understand the new product and demonstrate the product's value. Now, let's practice some of the language we learned in today's lesson. Imagine you are demonstrating a new video camera. I'll give you a cue telling you what you need to do. Then, you'll hear a prompt. Use the words in the prompt to make an effective statement during your demonstration. We'll guide you through each step in the practice and play an example answer for each response. Ready? Let's give it a go. Start off by relating changes in the controls to customer feedback.
Added. Manual controls. Customers. Ask for. Answer. We have added manual controls because customers have asked for them.
Next, highlight the benefits of the new manual controls.
With. Controls. Users. Freedom. Answer. With these new controls, users have greater freedom.
Now, you will demonstrate how the manual controls work.
Push. Button. Choose from. Several options. Answer. So, just push this button here and you can choose from several options.
Next, anticipate customer concerns about the difficulty of using the new controls by saying they are easy to use.
No need. Worry. Too complex. Controls. Really easy. Answer. And there's no need to worry it's too complex, as the controls are really easy to use.
Finally, you need to encourage questions from the audience.
Anyone. Questions. Comments. Changes. Answer. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the changes?
Now, let's practice some of the vocabulary and collocations we've covered in this lesson. In a moment, you'll hear a series of sentences with a word replaced with a beep. Repeat each sentence, including the missing word. For example, if you hear,
I'd just like to that the product launch is in May.
you can say,
I'd just like to add that the product launch is in May.
After each response, we'll play the correct answer. Let's begin.
Let's start by having a at the home page. Answer. Let's start by having a look at the home page.
All of your accounts are directly to the main dashboard. Answer. All of your accounts are linked directly to the main dashboard.
This new photo software isn't with my old computer. Answer. This new photo software isn't compatible with my old computer.
Let me know if I can. Any other concerns for you? Answer. Let me know if I can address any other concerns for you.
All right, so you're done with your answers. Let me share the answers with you. Well, the answer to the very first question, that was, why does Tony say customers have, what does he say customers have asked for? The customer need is the need for integration. And what benefits Tony talks about? No more manual moving of data, linking it directly, easier data access, more reports generation, and better tracking of data. And the third question, where Jenny thinks that some people might be concerned about, what she thinks is that maybe people are not ready for this change, or they are not in need of this change, so they can always opt out. This was all about today's listening task and today's talk. And in today's talk, we talks about the other types of reports that involves proposal reports, white paper reports, marketing plans, usability reports, and then we had a workshop of formal report writing. We also involved checklist, and our language expansion activity was the part 2 of the project presentation. This was all for today. I will see you in the next talk, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.